Welcome, everybody, to the Introspection Hour with Brian and Patrick. And we just want to say that today is our 10th episode, and we just want to say thank you to our current subscribers and our future subscribers for continuing to support us throughout this journey. So for today's episode, we actually kind of want to talk about what it's like as far as growing up as a millennial in the 21st century and what it really means to kind of be an adult. I was thinking about, Patrick, like when we were kids, like in high school and growing up, we're always taught that you go to school, you get your degree, you graduate, and you find a job, right? But the one thing that I realized is they don't really. There are certain things in school that they don't really teach us to prepare ourselves for life. And the one big thing I realized is they don't teach us enough about financial literacy.
Yeah, man. Like, I don't think, my parents taught me financial literacy, and when you're poor, you have to learn financial literacy because there's only so much money to go around, right? So you don't get that from school. You don't get that from mentors or whatever. Hopefully you have some parents, or you learn it on your own and you watch YouTube videos or read, financial guru books.
Yeah, because for me, for example, my mom is a really horrible. It's like she's a very financially illiterate person. And the one thing that I want to make sure for myself particularly is that I didn't want to grow up like her. So I kind of basically went completely the opposite route of how my mom, quote, taught me financial literacy. Like, I know for you, for example, you grew up, I mean, I don't want to use the word poor. I'm not really.
We were poor.
Okay. But we'll say like less financially well off than, the average person. But you somehow, your family made it work. Like, what was it that you kind of learned along the way? Like, how did you teach yourself how to be more financially capable?
So, there's different levels, right? Because there's like the budgeting, and my parents taught me the budgeting, which is cool. But what they did was really because my dad sat me down one day, a lot of times. He goes, Patrick, that's great. You want this, you want that. You want a nice car. You say you're gonna drive a BMW. You say you're gonna do this. You're gonna have a house. Like, what kind of job are you gonna get? How much money are you gonna make? Okay, so you make $50,000-$60,000. Let's do the math. And he broke down the numbers, and I'm like, dude, this is not enough, right? There's a weird thing that happened where, like, when you're growing up, you think, oh, if I make $50,000, I can buy a $50,000 car, right? And it's primarily because you're not responsible for any other expenses, and so you think you're gonna just get whatever you want, which is totally not the case. And so when he did that, and then seeing my parents kind of go through the issues of budgeting when you're poor and you have a very, very, finite source of income that's not always guaranteed. And sometimes that income source just dries up. That changes the game in terms of what you can and can't do, even what I asked my parents for and what I didn't. Because to me, when I was growing up, like, asking for $5 to go play video games at an arcade or just an arcade game was a big ask.
You know what? The one thing,
right?
Like the one thing I actually loved about hanging out with you, because every time, let's say we went out to a bar or a club, you'd always buy me a drink, man.
But that was when I was making money, right? That wasn't when I was growing up, and that period of my life was like the worst financial management period of my life. Like, I blew so much money on you, Brian. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, that's what good friends are about, man. Like what we talked about on a previous episode. It's all about having those good friends who got your back, right?
And no regrets in a sense, right? Like, I mean, would I have been better off financially now if I had, scrounged up my money and squirreled it away? Absolutely. But if I got to help you out or just had a good time and good memories with you and others, I try to discipline myself. Like, there was only a few people I would buy a drink for. Everyone else was on their own. Everyone else, I was like, buy me a drink, right? So you were one of the few people I bought a drinks.
No, I hear you. So I have a question for you, actually, did your family actually set up an emergency fund?
No, we never got that far.
No, right?
Not until my sister and me graduated high school did we start making money, did we have something we could save. before then we were just my mom would save as much as she could, and she handled the finances in our family, but we just didn't make enough.
Yeah.
Right. So my sister had to become a nurse, and she became a registered nurse as fast as possible. And thankfully that came at the right time when my parents couldn't work as well. So it was a lot of different things, but we didn't have really build up savings until both my sister and I were out of high school. We were both working one way or another, and that helped out. And we still stick together as a family, right? Like the four of us, and my mom and dad were still doing work, whatever they could find and things like that. So that's how we built a little bit of savings, of a cushion.
Does that ever scare you though? Like, for example, like, so you're saying you never had an emergency fund up until you started working and your sister started working. Like, what would happen if you had, let's say, a catastrophic, or I use the word catastrophic, but you know how most Americans live paycheck to paycheck. And like my mom, for example, does that. And she actually comes to me, for example, she needs to borrow money. Like otherwise she's screwed, like a better word. Like, has that ever worried you growing up, or you just never really thought about it until looking back?
When I was growing up, I had a sense that my mom understood enough about the budgeting and the money. So she would always have an emergency fund. I just didn't know at what level. And I just knew it also wasn't like a 6-month emergency fund, right? Like the 6-month saving. It didn't seem like that, but it did seem like we could survive for another month or two, give or take. So maybe 2 to 3 months is what my mom had. But for the most part, when my parents decided to have their dry cleaners and be their own, have a small business, it's ebbs and flows. So for me as a kid, I learned really quickly, seeing my sister, how she handled it, that I shouldn't complain. And then luckily I had enough people around me. I had my older cousin Matt that would take me to Dodger games, that would take me fishing. I had other people spend money on me that were my parents. So as much as I would say, like, yes, my family was poor, I had people who were around me that were letting me enjoy life. Let me put it that way. But when I came down to my family, Brian, I gotta say, this is gonna sound a little kind of cliche, but we prayed a lot during that time when we knew money was, my parents started me and my sister praying. And honestly, I felt like God was always watching over us. So we just shouldn't have to worry about money. And we were kind of happy. There were a lot of happy moments. So it's like Biggie said, more money, more problems, man. like when you don't have that much money, there aren't that many problems. You just kind of live your life, and then you just go out there and you crush it. And my parents also, they had this like the grit. They had the grit. They had this like, no matter what happens, we'll find a way to put food on the table, right? So that's how it was for me. But I learned the discipline needed for budgeting, the just basics of budgeting from my parents to help me understand, I'm going to need a job that pays more than 60, 70 grand a year, because, when you're poor, you think that will be enough. And for all the dreams that you have, it's not enough.
Yeah, no, I know we talked about this in our career podcast episode about how much money really makes you more happier, right? I think it was a $70,000 cutoff in a sense. So for example, like budgeting, like you do mention budgeting a lot, which is actually really important. So it doesn't matter how, like for example, you hear like rich doctors who make 6 figures easily, but the problem is it's like if you're overspending, like you're buying convertibles, you're going to like $100 meals a day, obviously you're going to continue to, you'll still be poor, right? You're making a lot of money, but you're poor. So going back to my parents, and mom, if you're listening to this, my parents, for the most part, make about $250,000 combined. Is that considered the 1%? Do you remember? Or what do you call that?
Maybe not in California, but for national purposes, dual income earners making that much is pretty high up there. Not top 1%, but it could be very close. Let's say top 5, top 10%, something like that.
Okay. And again, going back to my situation where I just looked at my mom and I never wanted to be like my mom growing up, at least in a financial sense, because my mom is always complaining that she never has any money. And one of the biggest problems in her case is that like your family budgeted, my family didn't. And they always felt like they had the money to just buy stuff, and they needed this, they need a new TV every Black Friday. Like, Mom, you don't need. And I've even asked her, like, Mom, set up a Vanguard account, set up a Mint account so you could actually see where your money is going. And this is actually a very important aspect of like how to be a functioning adult financially, is you have to know where your money is going.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And, this is where there was a shift that happened where you go from budgeting and you start looking at net, right? So budget is really income minus expenses. And you just get to zero, where you're using all the income that you have to expenses. So at some point, you got to go from budget to understanding how the whole financial system works enough so that you can manage your money, right? And at some point for me, I looked at my net, and that's when I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, my net seemed to always be negative, even though I had money coming in. You know what I mean? And you're spending to live in debt, but you're not really in debt, if that makes sense. You just pre-spend all the money that you're going to make. And that was it was a trap that I was falling into. Yeah, as much as like your parents they make a lot of money, but when you look at top 1%, top 5%, they're looking at net value. So that's a little bit of a difference. It's regardless of the income.
So I do want to touch a little bit of a topic about what you were saying as far as your net value, for example, right? So let's say a lot of these are unexpected expenses, right? So let's say you pay all your bills, and do you realize most people have no idea what to do with their money? Right? My parents thought put in a savings account. Okay? That's actually one of the stupidest things you can do. Now, not to say that don't have a savings account. This is an emergency fund. Savings account is a completely different thing. The one thing that I realize most people are really, really ignorant about is the whole concept of investing. Right?
Sure.
And without going into a big topic of just how to invest, I mean, we can do that for another segment, but the basics is, for example, your 401k, like Patrick, generally, what do you put down for your 401k as far as how much should they take from your paycheck per pay period? 5%, 10, 20? If you want to share, like, what do you put down?
About 5 to 10%. And, it sort of depends on financial match from your employer. Yeah. I'm an independent contractor now, so there's a lot of complexities that come with it.
Okay.
But when I was, working for a company, I was putting in 10% because at that time I didn't know enough. And so the only thing I felt safe doing was putting it into my 401k. And luckily my employer had a really good match. And so I ended up with a really good head start on my 401k, which is unusual in a sense. And so I hear you. There was something my mom told me that was really smart. And I asked her, like, what should we do with the rest of the money? Or like, I'm making this money, like, what should I do with it? And she actually said, Patrick, I don't know the system enough. Wait a minute. I don't know the system at all. I don't know how interest rates work, auto loans, payments, principal payments, investment accounts, retirement accounts, pre-tax, after-tax, deductions, none of that stuff. And then I started to do my own taxes, which taxes is the other thing. How many people pay a CPA when their taxes are super simple, right? And
TurboTax, bro. Just TurboTax it. I mean,
TurboTax.
$50, $60. Right? I don't know how much it costs, but something like that.
Heck, if you're tight on money, sit there, take about 2 to 4 hours. This is what I did before TurboTax. I literally read the instructions and filled out my taxes.
Dude, it's just ask you.
Don't worry.
Dude, it's so easy. Yeah. Just go through your license, go to box I, box 2, put in whatever number is there. It's so simple. Like, this is the one thing that bothered me, okay? Like, hate to bring up my mom again. She's afraid to do her taxes because it's complicated. Mom, it's not complicated. I'll even do it for you. I even told her, Mom, I'll do it for you. Because she goes to like H&R Block, one of those like tax people, for example, right? And I've never done this before, but I remember one time she said she paid $600 for them to get the maximum refund. I'm like, Mom, you just paid $600 that essentially could have been refunded back to you if you just did it yourself. You could have gotten more. And I know this is scary for a lot of people. It's the concept of dealing with money is scary. I get it.
It is. And, if you're listening to this and you're like, man, these guys are just, railing on me because I don't know how to do this, just dive in. there is no, you don't have this risk of losing $20,000. Okay, there is no, what do I say? Like
Auditing. People are afraid of getting audited.
auditing is the worst. Is such a fear-based fake, not fake. It's so fear-based that it's ridiculous. And this is what I mean. Like, well, one, under the Trump administration, they actually reduced the number of auditors out there, so there's less people getting audited. And number two, like, you have to be doing something wrong, not because you made a mistake. You have to be doing something wrong in order to be really audited hard, right? If you make a mistake on your taxes and the IRS catches it, they'll let you fix it. They understand. There's no fear. If you owe money to the federal government, you can call IRS and be like, hey, can I put myself on a payment plan to pay you back? They go, yeah, most of the time. Under 25 grand. Like it's one of the biggest, it's like 0.001% of the people who file taxes get audited, right? I mean, they're probably spending so much time on Trump's tax returns anyway, auditing him, that they don't have enough money and people left over to audit us. But it's when you're a W-2 employee, when you work for a company, there is almost zero risk for you to get audited, right? You get audited when you start doing $70,000. I'm railing on Trump, but like you get audited when you make incorrect business expense deductions or something like that. So all we're saying is you can do your taxes. So everyone just do your taxes. It's fine. It's easy. You're gonna no problem. All right.